While I was working on this video, a male wrote a comment giving me unsolicited advice for what to eat, and Tina, one of my moderators, noticed that this was the same user who had in the past failed to address any points I made on this topic. As you can see, he responded by doubling down on his advice. So I want to make something clear. If you believe that I eat too many breads and sweets, or that I don't eat enough fish, beef, or chicken, or that I don't do half 1,000 push-ups a day, or run 150 miles a year, or have a face shape you define as overweight, I encourage that you watch someone else. How about you improve the way you look instead of espousing a homoerotic opinion about my appearance? And how does someone who never met me know what diet I have? No one should have to do half 1,000 push-ups a day to get with a woman. And if I have to do all of the various tips given in this comment to maybe get a date, it's not worth it. Let's play out the logical conclusion of his advice. You change your diet, do 500 push-ups a day, and run 1.5 miles twice a week. You lose your fat face, and you get a woman to either go on a date with you or become your girlfriend. So if you stop doing hundreds of push-ups a day, she's going to break up with you. If you only run 1 mile a week, she doesn't like you anymore. If you eat sweets again, she's going to scream in horror, "Oh no, it's the return of the fat face. I've got to get out of here." Are any of these women going to exercise so that they can be cut up too, or are they all perfect in their own way? This is how men are set up to fail. You jump through a bunch of hoops for random women that get to have a partner no matter what they look like, no matter how they act, no matter if they exercise or not. And then people act surprised when you don't want to participate in an extremely unfair system such as this one. In my I've Been Criticized for Everything video, I talked about the various ways in which men had sought to insult me over not getting with a woman, and how they either were condemning my personality or physical appearance, which had led me to conclude I would always have someone criticizing me for something, and thus it was a waste of time to take any of it to heart. And this comment is proof of that. Say I did all of this extraneous physical daily routine, and it still wasn't enough to get with a woman, which is a possibility. I would just get called ugly, which is what this guy is saying when he says I have a fat face, and that would be used to discredit the rest of my look. So whether you take their advice or don't, as long as you're not with the woman, you just can't win. Many of my detractors have claimed that I am lacking in some qualities they believe are attractive to women and cite this as the reason I'm single. And these qualities are literally all over the place, as I've been attacked over my appearance by supposedly straight men and my personality by people who have never spoken to me, let alone met me. So for the most part, I don't let what's said online affect me, but I must admit that there is one thing that I've considered when speaking to women that I know I only think about because of my experiences online. You'll never get my critics to admit this, but when you put a man's worth on the shoulders of his appeal to random women, we can infer that you believe that any man with a woman is automatically better than any man without one. This is why I joked that these men with women were the world's finest men, who are my superiors in most or all capacities by virtue of getting a woman to either go on a date with them or enter a relationship with them. Now, if this inference is taken to its logical conclusion, we can infer that a woman who is in a relationship would have no use for speaking to a man who is not in one. The man she's with is my superior, as validated by computer clowns, so what use would she have for me? I've been very consistent since 2017 about not approaching women, which means that outside of a few occasions, my interactions with them only begin because they seek me out. But when I start a conversation with a woman on social media, those interactions are strictly platonic, and I would say are very similar to my interactions with other men who I'm acquaintances with. At the end of December to the beginning of January, I spoke to 2 women who, as you are seeing in the screenshots, admitted to having boyfriends after a period of talking to me. It needs to be understood that I did not seek out knowledge. on if they were with anyone or not. The one on the left, who I'll call Woman A, revealed she had a boyfriend after I made a joke about her driving. And the one on the right, who I'll call Woman B, revealed she had one after I said that I was just one of the men she spoke to. I didn't ask either of them if they had a boyfriend because I don't care about the romantic status of someone that I'm not trying to get with. I met Woman A first, and we spoke in total for 5 days, and they were very enjoyable as we had certain things in common. She laughed at my jokes, and she seemed fairly interested in talking to me. She also never once argued with me, and when we had a misunderstanding, she sought clarification. That's a fatal flaw in Woman B that Woman A did not have. If Woman A had not mentioned having a boyfriend, I'm 99% sure we would have continued speaking unless she randomly became tired of talking to me. It's actually very hard for me to directly say anything bad about her since we managed to get along, but this goes back to what I said earlier. I cannot justify having people online tell me that there's something wrong with me because I'm not in a relationship, while women who are in one get to talk to other men without being criticized for not being exclusive to their supposedly perfect partner. I see me refusing to speak to Woman A after she revealed she had a boyfriend as giving her a consequence for this contradiction. I'm not saying this to speak highly of myself, but she did appear to enjoy talking to me, so I hope my absence is an inconvenience. If her boyfriend is good enough to live with, he's good enough to talk to instead of me. Woman B was my rebound of sorts from Woman A. A few days into us speaking, she got upset with me for sending her a message while she was at work. I have no way of knowing when a random person is working, especially if it's during the weekend. This was the first thing she did that irritated me a bit, only because I don't expect an immediate response when I send a message, but I considered this a learning curve, and from that point forward would ask her what her schedule was as a way of trying to improve our current interactions. It's around this time that she refers to me as her friend, a word that I have really grown to hate people online referring to me as, because there's a tendency for people to treat me poorly after calling me this. The next few days were mostly pleasant until a certain Wednesday. On this particular Wednesday, I found out that someone close to me had tested positive for COVID, and I was worried for both them and myself, as I had been around this person a few days before the result came back positive. To clarify, I took a test the following week and it came back negative. I was texting Woman B when I found out about this diagnosis, and she didn't really seem to have much to say, as you can see from her responses to me. So when I asked if she didn't care, she sent me a voice message in which she stated that she didn't have to say that she cared to show her concern, and would later accuse me of trying to start an argument. This is the only time in our correspondence where her being upset with me was justified. In my defense, I believe I acted that way because I was worried about having a deadly disease, and to me, she didn't seem that concerned. I think I would describe my behavior as panicky and also erratic for a circumstance of seriousness. This is not me defending my behavior, but it is me explaining that this is not a way I would normally act. So the following day, I reached out to her, and she reveals after a series of voice messages that she has been ignoring me, which shocks me because I'm a person who gives people the benefit of the doubt when they don't respond for a certain period. So if I'm talking to someone and they don't write back for a day or two, I assume that they've been tied up. I conveyed that it was sad to learn that she was doing this to me, and she mocked me in a voice message response. I apologized for the Wednesday incident, and she seemingly forgave me. I didn't write anything to her on Friday. Keep this in mind, and we spoke next on Sunday. Pay attention to this part. This conversation is where she reveals that she was wondering what I was doing on Friday since I hadn't responded to her, that I was the only person she spoke to on Instagram, and that she had a boyfriend. The following day, I made a joke that she didn't like, so she sent me a video message where she was frowning and cursed at me twice. I asked who gave her permission to swear, and she apparently took this joke as being serious, even though I had made it before and she hadn't seemingly been upset by it. This propelled her to say that my jokes were not funny at all, accuse me of arguing, and ignore me for the next 2 days. And as those days passed, I thought it was very unfair for her to get this upset with me over a misunderstanding, and I couldn't justify understanding her perspective on this. I also noticed a pattern where every couple of days she would go from blowing smoke up my behind by telling me how much I mattered to her or being nice to being upset with me over multiple things. And I just couldn't take it anymore. So when she posted a question asking if people couldn't wait for a movie to come out, I responded that I couldn't wait for her to stop acting like a schizophrenic prick and blocked her. I don't like the idea of me saying something to someone and then preventing them from being able to respond to me. So I sent her an email elaborating on my decision. I'll read the email later. I waited a few days for her to respond and sent her a message on my other Instagram account with the good faith assumption that she had simply not checked her email. She proceeded to block my account. The reason I called her schizophrenic is because that word means a mentality or approach characterized by inconsistent or contradictory elements. And that's exactly how she acted from start to finish. The night before she got so upset with me over a joke as to ignore me for multiple days, she told me that I was the only person on Instagram that she spoke to and had been wondering where I was the day I didn't message her. And before this, she was upset with me for messaging her while she was working literally days after telling me that I could message her whenever. These are inconsistent, contradicting actions that I think earned her that comment I wrote. Every couple of days, she would fluctuate from laughing at whatever joke I sent her to being upset with me. And I'm adult enough to admit the only time she was justified, as I'll admit my role in the Wednesday incident. But ask yourself this: if you allege that a person always argues with you, wouldn't you be able to cite examples? She would never give examples of this supposed combative behavior that I was constantly demonstrating. I don't like to play psychiatrist, but I don't believe she was mentally equipped to have a correspondence with me. And what I mean by that is when I speak to somebody and they do something that bothers me, I tell them what that was so they can have the chance to improve, in my view. When you get upset with someone and can't articulate what exactly they are doing that angers you so, it's hard and borderline impossible for them to know what they should do to curry your favor. I don't believe any friendship or relationship can work if a person in it gets upset with someone else and refuses to communicate what has upset them, but instead chooses to disappear or ignore the other person for days until they eventually get over it. And even though I believe I tried very hard to make my dialogue with Woman B work out, there's a part of me that believes she was intentionally self-destructive. Who calls someone their friend and in the span of less than a day goes from telling that person that they're the only one you speak to on a website to accusing them of always arguing without any examples? I'm just not interested in talking to people who gas me up as their supposed friend and then get mad at me every couple of days and then the cycle repeats itself. I would rather be hated permanently than liked temporarily. But anyway, I've explained why it's weird that women with boyfriends who are supposed to be the world's finest men want to speak to me. Maybe there's an alternate universe where woman A wasn't with whoever she's with and I got with her and we lived happily ever after, and woman B had one personality instead of a rotation of two. But I'm going to end this with the email I sent to woman B, who I did try to make an effort to reconcile with, which is why that's the email's title. The email reads, I hope you've been well over the past few days. In short, I blocked you because I wanted to stop myself from thinking about you. To have someone who called you their friend proceed to ignore you for days because you wrote something they didn't like can be torturous. And I didn't know when you would stop tormenting me. I wanted a way out, and since I couldn't make you continue speaking to me, it was my only recourse. I think I made several attempts to navigate past some of your issues with me, of which I never received credit on your part. Do you remember when you got upset that I messaged you while you were at work? I would ask you if you were working or at school the following day so as to not have you upset with me again. I even conceded that the way I acted when I was worried about COVID was combative and didn't try to start an argument with you afterward. When you have a correspondence with someone, especially by text, a lot of times that person's tone can't be understood. I had actually made the same joke of who gave you permission to swear once before, and you had answered sometimes it just comes out in a seemingly benevolent manner, meaning that you apparently weren't offended by it that time. If you don't believe this same joke was made without you being angry, I can screenshot it and send it to you. The fact that you claimed my jokes were not funny at all was especially contradictory, considering there were multiple instances where you typed ha 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 or LOL. I really never knew where I stood with you. Sunday night, you told me that I was the only person you spoke to on IG, and before that had called me a friend, and then by the following day had sent me a video that was very mean-spirited, in which you frowned and got mad at me over a joke. And you would accuse me of trying to argue with you, even in instances such as Monday, where I tried to be non-combative after you accused me of trying to argue by telling a joke. If you want me to unblock you, I will. We can resume speaking, but I want to be treated better than this. I think I've treated you very well, aside from my insult of you this past Wednesday, but you insulted me first, and I think you shouldn't throw stones if you live in a glass house.